Hello and welcome back to Math 050, and this is a video over Appendix A. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some conversions between linear measure and we're going to be using the American and metric units. And the first thing I want to talk about is converting between units and like what the point of that is. So, when you have the easiest way I can explain this is think of 1 foot. Okay. So if the length between here and here is 1 foot, okay, it's also the same as you having 12 inches, okay? And therefore, what we can say is, we can say that 12 feet is equal to, or 12 inches is equal to 1 foot, okay? And, we can say that, if you had, say, 1 mile, that's equal to 5,280 feet. Okay, all these different conversions that we have here exist. And so the ones that we're really going to be like taking a look at today are, using, first of all, we have the American units of length. So that's feet and inches, and yards, and then miles. Okay, but then the other thing that we're going to do is be able to convert metric units. So we'll do that. And metric units are actually pretty easy to, a lot easier to convert because they're on a base 10 scale, and we'll talk about what that means. And then we'll be able to convert in between units. Okay, so one thing I like to do here is to kind of look at this, and it says, all right, convert the following. Okay, what I want to do is I want to take 7 1/3 yards and convert that into inches. Like, how many inches is that? If I have 7 1/3 yards, if I have that distance, well, how far is that distance in inches? Okay, so what I'm going to use is I'm going to use these things here. Okay, these conversion units. All right, and so what I want to do, my first step when I convert something into yards is this, or from yards to inches, I do this. First of all, we're dealing with this number 7 1/3 yard. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to write that number out. I'm going to write out 7 1/3 yard over 1. Okay. And the one thing I'm going to do about this is to convert this into an improper fraction and do 3 times 7, which is 21 plus 1, so that's going to be 22. So let's rewrite this as far as yards as 22 thirds yards. All right, and I'll explain why here in a second. Because I can operate with this number. I can't operate with this number. All right. So now I have 22 1/3 yards. I'm going to put that over 1. Now what I want to do is I want to multiply this by another fraction. And I want to use my conversion that I know. Okay, and the conversion that I know is that 36 inches is equal to 1 yard. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to multiply this fraction, 22 thirds, by 1 yard down here and 36 inches up here. Now, it's important that I do it in this way, because what I have here is I have this concept of yards in my numerator and yards in my denominator. And what I'm going to do here is that these yards divide out. Okay, if I have, and if you think about it, if I have like 1 yard over 1 yard, okay, 1 divided by 1 gives me 1, but yard divided by yard also gives me just 1. So the yards, the conversions themselves, not only the numbers can divide out like what we've shown, but the yards do, but the units of length can also divide out. Okay, so that's really important. So then what you have left at this point is you have 22, so 22 thirds times 36 over 1 inches. Okay, so if I multiply these two fractions together, what ends up happening is I'm going to take 22 times 36, and that's going to give me 792. So 792 divided by 3 inches. Okay, 3 times 1 is 3. So if I divide that number by 3, then we're going to get that this is equal to 264 inches. Okay, so if I have 7 1/3 yard, that's the same thing as me saying I have 264 inches. Okay, so let's keep doing this. Let's do a couple more examples here to kind of show what I mean by that. Okay, what I mean by this. Okay, so 48 inches, how many feet is that? Okay, and so what I have here in this, the first thing I'm going to write is 48 inches over 1. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to get something where I have inches down here and feet up here. And the reason is because I want my inches to divide out. So the question is how do I convert inches to feet? What's my unit of length? What's my thing? It's 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. So what I do is I come down over here and I say, all right, if I have 12 inches, that's equal to 1 foot. So what happens is that my inches divide out, and I'm left with 48 times 1 feet divided by 1 times 12, and that's it. Okay, so what I've done when I do that, when I make this fraction here and I multiply it by another fraction with different units, okay, I'm changing the units and putting it into a different unit. And when I have inches on top and on the bottom, they divide out, and then I get feet up top. So now I just take 48 times 1, which is just going to give me 48. All right, so I've got 48 feet divided by 12. And so 48 divided by 12 is just going to give me 4 feet. Now you're probably asking yourself, hey, I can probably do that in my head, and I get, 4 feet out of this just by taking 48 and dividing it by 12 because there's 12 inches in a foot. Okay, that works. That's totally fine. However, I do want you to be able to show your work on this because they do get a little bit more confusing. Okay, so all right, let's take a look at the next one. 25 feet is how many yards? Okay, so what do I have? I have 3 feet. Here's what we got to look at. 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So we're converting from feet to yards. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I've got 25 feet. So 25 feet over 1. And I'm going to multiply that by, and I'm going to put feet down here and yards up here. Okay, so 25 feet. And what I know is my conversion is that I have 3 feet in 1 yard. Okay, now, so then what I do is I can divide out my feet here and here. And what I'm left with is 25 times 1 yards divided by 1 times 3. Okay, and that's it. And my label now is just in terms of yards. So 25 times 1, that's just going to give me 25. So I've got 25 over 3 yards. Okay, and you could probably leave it like that. If we wanted to divide those, we could. So 25 divided by 3 is going to give me 8.3 repeating. So 8.3 repeating yards. If we wanted to be more exact, we would say like 8 1/3 yards. Okay, any one of these answers is correct, but I'd say 8 1/3 would be reasonable. Okay, so all right, move on to the next one. 3.8 miles is how many inches? Okay, this is where it gets confusing. This is where I think it's best to use this practice of doing the fraction. Okay, so here's what I know. Okay, so what I have is I have 3.8 miles. Okay, I'm going to put that over 1, and then I'm going to multiply that by miles on the bottom. Okay, and then the only conversion that I have for miles is that I know that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put that 1 mile is the same thing as 5,280 feet. Okay, and then, okay, but my goal here is to convert this into inches. Okay, so now, what you can think about here is, we can divide out the miles, but now we need to convert this from feet into inches. So we need to multiply this by another, let me change colors, make sure we're in black. Multiply this by another fraction, put feet on the bottom, and put inches up top. Okay, and I have 1 foot for every 12 inches. So now my feet here divide out. And so my answer that we're going to get in the end is this. We're going to have 3.8 times 5,280 and then times 12. Okay. And, all right, so times 12. And this is inches. And this is going to be over just 1. Okay, so we don't really need to put that over 1, but just to keep the fraction idea there, we've got it. So let's just go ahead and multiply all those numbers together. And we're going to get 3.8 times 5,280, which gives us 20,064. And we're going to multiply that by 12, and that's going to give us inches. Okay. And so if we multiply that by 12, we get inches. And so that's going to give us 240,768 inches. Okay, and that's it. All right, so those aren't too bad because they're pretty easy to remember because a lot of these we use all the time. Okay, but it's important that we do this conversion because when you get to something like this, it gets a little tricky. All right, so if you write things down, it just makes it a little bit easier. All right, so the next thing I want to go over is metric units of length. Now, in the United States, we use this, okay? And we're used to that. We're used to understanding that. But the rest of the world uses metric units. And metric units are really an interesting concept because it's in base 10. So you have a meter, okay? And a meter is approximately, it's similar to a yard. It's really close to a yard. So like this is the between the units. So 1 yard is about 0.914 meters. Okay, so those are comparable. So if you know a yardstick, a meter stick is about the same length. Okay, but they use meters instead of feet. Okay, and so what we have, and instead of inches, they use centimeters. And so, but they go in bouts of 10. So like 100 centimeters, cent means 100, is a meter, okay? And then one kilometer means you have 1,000 meters. But each of these are, differ by what's called base 10, okay? And so, it's not too bad. The one thing I do want to talk about is instead of using these fractions here, 1 decimeter is 1/10 of a meter. 1 centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. And a millimeter is 1/1000th of a meter. So what we have here, let me just turn these into decimals here. If I take 1 and divide it by 100, that's going to give us, divided by 10, that's going to give us 0.1. All right, so if I'm talking about 1 over 10, I'm using about 0.1. For 1 over 100, I'm doing 0.01. All right, and I'll use that number. If I'm talking about 1/1000th, I'm going to use 0.001. Okay, and use that. So, so let's go ahead and kind of figure out what we can do here. Now, what I have on this one is we have 4 kilometers, and we want to turn this into meters. Okay. Now, this is a little bit easier and a little bit more intuitive than what we had. But we've got, let's do this. I'm going to do 4 kilometers, okay, same thing. Okay, I'm going to put that over 1. I'm going to multiply that by something with meters up top and kilometers down here, okay? That way, my kilometers will divide out. But let's think about it. If in 1 kilometer, I have 1,000 meters, Okay, and I'm just looking at this table here and looking at that, and so I'm going to write that down. That 1 kilometer, okay, oops, is equal to 1,000 meters. Now my kilometers divide out, so now what we're left with is we're left with 4 times 1,000 meters over 1. Okay, and 4 times 1,000 is just going to give us 4,000. Okay, 4,000 meters. So it's pretty easy to convert these. It's really not too bad because they're all in base 10. You just multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, or divide by those numbers, and that's it. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to do meters. So 0.248 meters to millimeters. And I'm betting you it's going to be 248. And I haven't done the problem yet. I just kind of know how to do these. But if I'm going from meters to millimeters, this is the conversion that I want to do. So 1 millimeter is equal to 0.001 meters. All right, so let's go back and let's do this. So I'm going to write down 0.248 meters over 1 is equal to another fraction. Meters is going to go down in my denominator, and millimeters is going to go up top. Okay, now remember, in 1 millimeter, there was 0.001 meters. Okay, I'm just getting that from the table. So now my meters divide out, okay, and now what we're left with is this. You're left with 0.248 times 1 millimeter, sorry, and then divide that by 1 times 0.001. So really what this comes out to is we have 0.248 divided by 0.001 millimeters. All right, so that would be something I would divide in the calculator and do that and do 0.248 and divide that by 0.001, and that's going to give me 248. Okay, and so a lot of times, you know, when you do this, you know, you can just move the decimal place around if you know what you're doing, but you know, I suggest that we do this. Okay, that will help. All right, let's take a look at the next one. 93.4 meters, turn that into centimeters. So what I have, let's do this. I'm going to write 93.4 meters, put that over 1, and multiply that by some number in meters down below and centimeters up top. Okay, so let's look at the conversion. So in 1 centimeter, here's what I've got. In 1 centimeter, I have 1/100th of a meter. So 1 centimeter is 0.01 meters. All right, so let's write that down. So 1 centimeter, okay, 1 centimeter is 0.01 meters. So then my meters divide out, and we're going to be left with 93.4 centimeters divided by 0.01. Okay, you can kind of just disregard those ones after a while and just kind of, you know, divide the numbers that are actually there. So if I take 93.4 centimeters, 93.4 and divide it by 0.01, that's going to give me 90, what do we got? 9,340 centimeters. And that's what we've got. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, 89 kilometers. We're going to put that into centimeters. So think about this. You know, this one's going to be like, okay, I'm going to take 89 miles and convert that into inches. Okay, that's kind of what we're doing. So now the first thing I want to do is take 89 kilometers, okay, and then I'm going to divide that by 1, okay. I'm going to multiply that by something in kilometers. Now the problem with this one is that we don't have a conversion ready for kilometers to centimeters. However, what we do have is we do have a conversion from kilometers to meters and then meters to centimeters. So we need to first convert this into meters and then we'll convert it into centimeters. So I'm going to do this. All right, I'm going to do meters here. And so in 1 kilometer, I have 1,000 meters, okay? And then in 1 meter, So meters need to go down below. I have 100 centimeters. Okay, so really what I'm doing, and let's do this. Let's divide out our kilometers. Let's divide out our meters. So now we're just left with centimeters. Okay, and I've got 89 times 100, or I'm sorry, times 1,000 times 100, and this is centimeters. So now let's just multiply this out, and we're going to get 89 times 1,000 times 100, and that's going to give me 8,900,000 centimeters. Okay, and that's it. All right. So it's really not too hard. Okay, but let's go ahead and do these last two problems with going between American units and metric units. So if I have 26.2 miles, how many kilometers is that? So we're going to use this conversion here, where 1 mile in kilometers. Or I could use this. It doesn't matter which one I use necessarily, as long as I use one or the other and make sure my units are correct. So let's do this. 26.2 miles, all right, that's going to be, let's write that down. So 26.2 miles over 1. I'm going to multiply that by miles and kilometers. Okay, and it doesn't really matter. So let's just put 1 mile here and use that first one that we had. And so 1 mile was the same thing as writing 1.609 kilometers. All right, so 1 mile is the same as 1.609 kilometers. All right, so then I'm going to divide out my miles here, and we're going to get 26.2 times 1.609 kilometers. Okay, and so we're just going to multiply those two numbers together. 26.2 times 1.609, and that's going to give me 42.1558 kilometers. All right, and that's my answer. So, and that's it. Okay. All right, 1.609. Okay, yeah. All right. And we can go, let's just go ahead and finish this up. Let's talk about converting inches to centimeters. All right, so first things first, I'm going to write out 11 inches, okay, over 1. I'm going to multiply that by something with inches down here and centimeters here. Okay, now let's go back and let's just find 1 inch. So 1 inch represents 2.54 centimeters. So over here, I'm going to put 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So my inches divide out, and we're left with 11 times 2.54 centimeters. Okay, so let's just convert those. So I've got 11 times 2.54, and that's going to give us 27.94 centimeters. All right. So not too bad, and it's all just about setting it up and using what you have and making sure that those units divide out. So you have quite a few problems here. So get started on this homework, and if you got any questions, let me know. Thanks a lot. We'll see you. Bye.